What's up, guys? This is going to be the 6-month and 3-day check-in, no nicotine. I'm going to be talking and covering the perceived benefits versus the perceived harmful effects of nicotine and of nicotine addiction. Whereas in my last video, I touched on this, but didn't actually get to make that list. And in this, I'm going to kind of highlight a list of perceived benefits versus perceived harmful effects, starting off with a benefit that has been mentioned a little bit, and it's that nicotine can increase your cognitive function, whereas that is an ability to focus in certain time periods, but in certain occasions, in certain situations as well. Basically, whereas you might want to be using your mind for a task like mentally stimulating, where you're actually not at movement with the physical body, but your mind is being used and being challenged, that nicotine is good because it calms down the muscles and allows for the mind to be in absolute focus, and so you're not jittery, you're not worried about what the body's doing, and etc., etc. And then I like to kind of talk about it like this. Okay, yeah, that may be a perceived benefit, but in what way are you going to ingest the nicotine, right? Dipping, chewing tobacco, blah, 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 that leads to possible infections with the mouth and problems with the mouth. You know how vaping is. We know how smoking cigarettes is. Is it worth chewing on Nicorette gum, like that contains nicotine? Is that really going to be the purest way, or a nicotine patch? Are you really going to go out of your way to actually, once you've quit nicotine and lived a life without it, are you going to actually, just because, oh, I want to improve my cognitive function for a mere amount of time, I'm going to relapse on some bogus nicotine way of using nicotine? No, you're not going to do that, right? Logically, that it doesn't make sense to just relapse for that one reason. And also perceived benefits that smoking tobacco and smoking nicotine can raise your testosterone. Well, that can purely be the case, but that doesn't mean that that's the best way to naturally increase your levels of testosterone, right? How about trying ways through diet? How about trying ways through activities? Trying ways through the things that you do that are not leaving you at the peril of an addictive substance. And for perceived benefits, man, I'm really struggling to find some here, because they could be called benefits, but it's if you're really just suiting to feeling good, right? You can tell yourself it feels good all you want, but that's not necessarily the case, that your body is taking the nicotine in a healthy way and it's actually making you healthier physically. That's not the case, and it's absurd for that to be even suggested as a perceived benefit. But yet again, we're here trying to figure out the perceived benefits of a nicotine addiction, and we're slimming to find out that there aren't really any logically fit, logically sound arguments for any perceived benefits of nicotine, when the other options you have instead of that are far more productive, far more superior, and just are more set towards a path of growth. So that's going to be the perceived benefits. Now for the perceived harmful effects are, if you smoke nicotine, if you vape at a very young age, that is under 15 and through 18, through adolescence, you're going to be fixed to this in a way of your mood, and your mood regulation is dependent on nicotine. It has to do with the hardwiring of the brain and how at a young age like that, you are very influenced, and it causes and plays a key role here. And so the younger that you do it, this is a perceived harmful effect, the younger that you do it, the more likely you are to never quit, or to quit after abusing the drug for years and years and years, to where you just eventually had to or ended up needing to quit. Otherwise, either something was going to happen to your health, or you couldn't continue doing what you've been doing. Other perceived effects are, there's all sorts of physical perceived effects that I don't want to get into because they're not really important right now. But mentally, it has a burden on you because you're thinking about hitting nicotine. You're thinking about it. You're thinking about it. You're thinking about it 24/7 once you're hooked on that. And I called it fiending when I was addicted. But yeah, it's you're thinking about it, and then not only are you thinking about it, you're thinking about how it's going to make you feel. So you're getting your thoughts and your emotions involved with that. And that's ended up going to throw you in some sort of a dependent relationship with the drug, with the substance, with nicotine. That's all you're setting yourself up for. And there are many more perceived harmful effects. But then we talk about the last perceived harmful effect. We talked about physically a little bit. We talked about mentally. We talked about emotionally. We talked about how thoughts are affected as well. Let's talk about spiritually. Unless you have made the conscious decision to be addicted to the drug ever since you started doing it, right? You felt like you weren't causing yourself any destruction at all or whatever, as long as you're agreeing with it, right? If you feel as if this was placed on you, the addiction, obviously you made the decision, so you can't get away from just saying, oh, I had to do it. No, you made the decision to smoke in the first place. So I'm going to assume that you either were continuing to smoke regardless of what your spirit and what your soul was telling you to not smoke. I'm going to assume that that was the case, because that was the case with me, where I had this deep knowing of, hey, this isn't really part of my path. This is something that along the way I came up on, and now I'm having a little bit of a difficulty shedding it, until, I ended up quitting, and I am where I am today, trying to help others to absolutely do the same thing and to also quit nicotine. But yeah, there's other perceived harmful physical effects that I'm not going to get into right now, and that's just kind of a balance list for you guys to balance. Is it worth it? Is it not worth it? What do I think about nicotine addiction? How does my nicotine addiction affect me? Is it a good thing for me? Is it a bad thing for my growth? Is it a good thing for my growth? And that's just something you guys should be thinking about, regardless of if it's with addiction or not. But definitely have this in mind. Peace.